Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're acting as historical detectives, diving into some of ancient history's absolute ultimate cold cases. We usually think of history as this steady upward march of human progress, right? Empires rise, they build these massive, awe-inspiring monuments, and then eventually they fall to invading armies or maybe some internal rebellion. But what happens when the enemy isn't even human? What is the one enemy no ancient army could defeat? Think about it for a second. The legendary military might of the Romans, the sheer architectural genius of the Maya, or the unbelievable wealth of the Minoans. They built massive walls, raised huge professional armies, conquered their neighbors. They created this brilliant illusion of absolute permanence. But there was one force that literally did not care about their swords, their revolutionary concrete, or their gold. That force is Mother Nature. In this explainer, we're going to uncover exactly how the greatest, most advanced civilizations of the ancient world were suddenly and violently wiped out by cataclysmic natural forces. From sudden geological upheavals that swallowed entire lands to slow-burning climate crises that starved millions, nature basically hit the reset button on human progress over and over and over again. And the wild part? The evidence of these spectacular downfalls is only just now being uncovered beneath the seas and deep in the jungles. Okay, let's dive right in. Section 1, the Minoan Volcanic Apocalypse. So our first stop takes us all the way back to the 15th century BC. The Minoans were Europe's first truly great civilization. We're talking a wealthy, peaceful maritime empire based mostly on the island of Crete. But their doom was hiding just 70 miles away on the nearby island of Santorini. To really wrap your head around the scale of what happened, I want you to focus on this staggering number, 10,000. Today, Santorini is famous for this beautiful, calm, water-filled basin surrounded by those gorgeous steep cliffs. But marine geologists have mapped the seafloor and realized that this basin is actually the remnant of a gigantic volcanic crater. It is so massive that you could literally fit 10,000 Olympic stadiums inside of it. That is the sheer, incomprehensible scale of the threat lurking just out of sight. This wasn't just a single, sudden boom. It was a multi-stage tragedy. First, geological evidence shows a massive earthquake struck the region. And notice phase 2 here, the rebuilding phase. Archaeologists excavating the ash-covered settlement of Akrotiri actually found beds and furniture moved out into the streets, along with piles of building materials. The people had survived the quake and were preparing to rebuild their homes. They genuinely thought the worst was over. But then came phase 3, the main eruption. It blasted a column of superheated debris 20 miles into the sky. The sheer ferocity of this event comes down to pyroclastic flows. Imagine torrents of superheated gas and molten rock tearing across the landscape at hurricane speeds, burning it up to a terrifying 1,000 degrees Celsius. Recent sonar scans by marine geologists have revealed these massive stone terraces fanning out from the volcano, literally the size of 20-story buildings, deep underwater. These are the solidified remains of those pyroclastic flows hitting the sea. Absolutely nothing in their path could have survived. And the devastation didn't just stay localized to the volcano itself. When millions of tons of lava and debris slammed into the ocean, it triggered monstrous tsunamis. We are talking about walls of water up to 30 feet tall. These massive waves raced across the 70 miles of open ocean between Santorini and Crete. The Minoans, who were completely unaware of the geological mechanics of tsunamis, were taken entirely by surprise. Their ports, their magnificent trading fleets, their coastal cities, all swept away in an instant. Just imagine standing on the shores of Crete that day. You see a colossal black pillar of ash reaching into the heavens in the distance, and then the sea simply vanishes, before rushing back as a towering 30-foot wall of destruction. To the Minoans, this wasn't plate tectonics. This was the wrath of the gods. The climate shock that followed, with ash blocking the sun and ruining harvests for years, ultimately erased their entire civilization. It is a very sobering reminder of nature's absolute supremacy. Let's turn the page and travel across the globe and forward in time. Section 2, the Maya climate crisis. For a long time, historians believed the great Maya civilization just mysteriously vanished into the jungle. But modern science has revealed the real truth. The 9th century AD brought a devastating, multi-generational megadrought. Climate shifts like this are historical serial killers, honestly. A very similar megadrought, the 4.2 kiloyear event, is exactly what caused the world's first empire, the Akkadians, founded by Sargon, to collapse into dust around 2200 BC. Wind-blown deposits in the Gulf of Oman literally prove that their agricultural breadbasket just dried up and blew away. That exact same event fractured the Egyptian Old Kingdom when the Nile stopped flooding, leading to starving citizens and a whole century of chaos known as the First Intermediate Period. So, back here in the Americas, this 9th century drought caused the vital limestone aquifers the Maya relied on to just completely plummet. Their world was drying up. But the Maya weren't just passive victims waiting for the end. They actively fought back. They used brilliant agricultural engineering, modifying landscape drainages to capture every single last drop of moisture. They shifted to more drought-resistant crops. And as resources tightened, they adapted. Archaeological evidence suggests that around 550 AD, the desperate population of Teotihuacan actually burned their own ceremonial core to the ground as crops failed and unrest grew. But the Maya avoided that immediate internal collapse by establishing extensive trade routes to central Mexico. Still, as the crisis deepened and starvation loomed, their desperation turned spiritual. Underwater archaeologists exploring the deep cenote Holtun have found haunting evidence of ritual human sacrifices, a tragic, final plea to the gods to return the rain. And the lengths they went to survive are just brilliant to see. Deep in that same sacred cenote, right alongside traditional local Maya ceramics, divers found something totally unexpected, a statue of Tlaloc, the central Mexican water god. This physical artifact proves that great Maya cities like Chichen Itza survived the drought for centuries longer than others by leaning heavily on those distant trade networks. When their local gods seemingly stopped listening, they literally imported a new water god from hundreds of miles away to bring the rains. It is a fascinating testament to human resilience in the face of a changing climate. Let's shift our focus now to our third and final section, Rome's sunken Sin City. The Roman Empire is absolutely legendary for its engineering prowess. Roads, aqueducts, the Colosseum. But even they were entirely at the mercy of violent geological forces. And we've seen this happen before. Around 6200 BC, the vast hunter-gatherer lands of Doggerland beneath the North Sea were suddenly wiped out by the Storge Slide, a massive submarine landslide off Norway that triggered a catastrophic tsunami. Well, Rome was about to face its own aquatic reckoning. To understand their ambition, look at this remarkable material, pozzolana. Sourced directly from Mount Vesuvius, it was a unique volcanic ash used to create revolutionary marine concrete that actually cured underwater. This allowed them to build the first artificial harbor in the world at Caesarea Maritima. But the sea always takes back what is hers. By 115 AD, that incredible, invincible concrete harbor at Caesarea Maritima was entirely shattered. For centuries, historians wondered how such a marvel could just disappear. Well, recent core samples drilled into the seafloor solved the mystery. They found a thick layer of violently churned up sediment from that exact period, pointing to a localized catastrophic tsunami. Nature took Rome's greatest engineering triumph, their unbreakable concrete bedrock, and wiped it out in a matter of minutes. But the destruction wasn't always a sudden wave. Let's look at the Roman resort town of Baia. The philosopher Seneca described ancient Baia as a place of extreme wealth, singing, and drunken debauchery. It was the absolute sin city of the Roman elite. But today, it's sitting 15 feet underwater. This is actually remarkably similar to Thonis Heraklion, that legendary Egyptian port city discovered perfectly intact in the year 2000 in Abu Qir Bay. That entire city was swallowed by the sea due to gradual rising waters and sudden, terrifying soil liquefaction. For Baia, marine archaeologists diving the ruins noticed something crucial. Stone-boring marine mollusks attached halfway up the standing marble columns. This tiny detail proves that the ground beneath the city didn't just sink once. It constantly rises and falls, because Baia is built directly on top of the swelling, breathing magma chambers of a massive volcanic system. Which brings us to a rather chilling modern question. Is the Campi Flegrei volcanic system preparing to awaken again? We're talking about the exact same supervolcano complex that slowly dragged Rome's ultimate party town beneath the waves. Geologists monitoring the site today are seeing severe land deformation and hot gases bubbling up right through the submerged Roman ruins. The pressure in the magma chambers beneath the Bay of Naples is demonstrably increasing right now as we speak. Now, why does this matter to us? Because if the Campi Flegrei system fully evacuates, scientists estimate it would produce an eruption almost 10 times more powerful than the Santorini blast that erased the Minoans. It would eject vast amounts of ash into the stratosphere, completely blocking out the sun, plummeting global temperatures, and destroying crop yields for years.
we would be facing the exact same catastrophic climate shocks and famines that we just saw topple the Maya, the Akkadians, and the ancient Egyptians. It's a disaster script written by nature, and frankly, it's still in production today.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If the greatest ancient empires, the builders of massive concrete harbors, towering pyramids, and sprawling trade networks, were so easily erased by the sheer unyielding force of nature, just how permanent is our modern world? We build our sprawling cities on coastlines and over fault lines, trusting implicitly in our technology, just like the Romans, the Maya, and the Minoans did. It's fascinating to learn about these ancient cold cases, but they also serve as a powerful, humbling warning. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Until next